Alright guys, in the last video we went ahead and added our JavaScript to add and remove our classes dynamically for the menu. We also created the cool X effect here when we click our menu. So now what I want to do is work on the overlay. Okay, we have our nav links right here, our nav items, but obviously we don't want these to show by default, so we have quite a bit of CSS to write, or I should say Sass. So let's go into our menu.scss. I'm going to close up some of this stuff. We don't need these. And let's just make this bigger. All right, so let's go down. We'll go all the way down outside of everything, and we want to create our menu overlay. And we're going to grab the class of menu, and let's position it to be fixed. Whoops, position to be fixed, and we'll say from the top we want 0, and then we want the width of it to be 100%, and the opacity, and you don't have to add opacity if you don't want it to be see-through. I like the see-through effect, and what I mean is if we go here you can kind of see the page behind it. If you don't want to add opacity, then don't add this if you want it to be just gray without the background. But I like the effect of seeing behind it, so we're going to set that to 0.9, and we want this to, by default, we want the visibility to be hidden, right? Because we don't want the links or anything to show by default. So let's say visibility and set that to hidden. So if I save, now we can no longer see it. Okay. Now, when we hit the button, then we want, remember, the show class is going to be applied. So we want to add for the show attached to the menu, so ampersand.show. Then we want to set the visibility to visible. So let's save that. And now if I click this, now it's visible. Okay. If I click it again, it goes away. So let's take care of like the branding and the nav and stuff like that. Now, since the class name is menu branding, what we could do is instead of, and we're going to go inside here, we're going to nest, instead of doing .menu-branding, we could actually say ampersand and then just add dash branding. Oops, that shouldn't be a 0, it should be a dash branding. So that's going to represent this, whatever this is, and then it's going to add on to it dash branding. So we don't even have to do like class menu branding. Just a neat little trick. Now I also want this styling to go for the menu nav. Okay, so we have a class of menu dash nav, so I'm going to put a comma here and we're going to say ampersand dash nav. All right, so that'll be menu branding and menu nav. So we want this to be displayed as flex. Okay, so we want to display flex, and let's make it into a column. So if we say flex dash flow, we want to set it to a column, which means going up and down as opposed to right and left, and we also want it to wrap. Okay, so we'll save that, and if we click this, we're not going to see any difference yet, but we want to align the items to the center. So let's say align items to center. We also want it to, we want to justify the content to the center as well. So we want it aligned both vertically and horizontally to the center. And then we want both to float left, and let's set the width to 50% because we want each side to take up 50% of the width. And for the height, we want the height to be the whole thing, so we're going to use 100 VH. Okay, so viewport heights. Remember what I said, like 100 slices, so it's going to take up the whole thing. And what we're talking about is both of these sides. This styling has to do with both of these. So flex is going to make it into a column, so that's going to make like these links go this way instead of this way. Align items will center it this way and then justify that way so that it's in the center. We're floating both to the left. Width is 50%, so we want to split it in half, and both of them have the height of 100 viewport heights. We also want to put an overflow hidden because we never want to have any scroll bars. So let's say overflow and set that to hidden. All right, so now let's go back to our project and try it out. So if we click this, you see the nav is now down here. It's in the middle of its 50% side, and there's no portrait, there's no image because we haven't added that yet, but we will have that. We'll also have the background for each side. This is just the styling that I wanted to apply to both the branding side and the nav side. So now we need to do each separate one. So within the menu, okay, but outside of this here, we want to do ampersand dash nav. Okay, so just the nav side. And we're going to just margin, we're going to zero out the margin and padding. And let's add a background. Now the background, I want it to be the primary color, but I want to darken it a little bit. So I'm going to use darken, which is part of Sass, and we want to say primary dash color, and let's set it 5. Okay, so if we save that and we click, now you can see we have the dark gray. And since we set the opacity of the menu to 0.9, we can see through it. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is get rid of the list, the icons. I'm sorry, not the icons, the bullet points here. So let's add list dash style, and we'll set that to none. Okay, get rid of those. Now, notice how when this shows up, when we click this, it just pops in, and I don't want that. I want it to slide in from the top. So we're going to use something called translate 3D, which is a value for transform, for the transform property. So as you can see here, if transform translate 3D takes in positioning attributes or parameters, and you can see each one of these, it just kind of moves it around because of these values. That's the 0 position. So what I want to do is on the nav, I want it to not show until the show class is applied, and then we want to basically change the translate 3D parameters. So let me show you what I mean. We're going to say transform and then say translate 3D we want. And we're going to start off at 0, 100%, 0. And that's going to just kind of take it off the page. It's going to put it up here. And then we want it to transition down. So we're going to also include our mixin of ease out. So let's say include ease out. Now when the show class is applied to the nav, so we want to go down here, we want to say ampersand and then dot show. So when that's applied, we want it to slide in from top, and we can do that by changing the translate 3D parameters. So transform, and then translate 3D, and we want to take the values now and just zero them all out. So now if I click this, actually I want that to come in from the top. Since I want it to come in from the top, we need to set this to -100, because what 100% is doing is it's pushing it down. It's pushing it down. If we do -100%, it should be up. So let's do -100, and now it comes in from the top. The other side we want to come in from the bottom, so we'll do 100% there. But yeah, that's good. Now before I work on like how these links look and stuff like that, and how they fly in from the side, I want to handle the branding side. So let's go still within the menu. You still want to be within the menu, but you want to go outside of the nav here. So to be right here. And let's say branding side. So we'll do ampersand dash branding to target the menu dash branding class. And let's set the background. So this background I just want set to the primary color, because remember the other one we darkened, so this one will just have just a regular primary color. You'll still be able to see through it because the menu class has the opacity. And we also want to set the ease out here, so let's say include ease out, and we're going to do the same thing with the translate 3D. So let's grab this, and actually I'll put that right here. Except this time, remember, we want it to come in from the top, so this middle value is going to be 100%. We're pushing it 100% up. And then on show, we want it to come down. So we're going to do the same thing. We'll grab this and show, put that in here. Except, actually, no, this is the same exact thing. We just want it to come back to its place. So it'll slide in from bottom. Let's try it. Let's save. And now if I click that, there we go. All right, so let's handle the portrait, because right now it's completely empty. Remember, we have a div with the class of portrait inside the menu branding. So we still want to be within the branding, and this is where that bracket colorizer comes in handy, so you can tell where you're at. See the different colors here? So we're going to go right here, and let's say dot portrait. And we're going to set the width of this to 250 pixels. We're going to set the height to 250 pixels. And then the background, we're going to set that to a URL. You could put this in a variable for easier access, but I think it's fine. So // into the image folder, and then we want portrait.jpg. Okay. I also want it to be circular, so we're gonna give it a border radius of 50%, which will make it into a circle, and then I'm going to add a border to it, which will be solid 3 pixels, and we want it to be the secondary color. So let's put the variable of secondary dash color. Okay, let's try it out. We'll save, and now there we go. Get the little portrait. So now let's handle the nav items. So I'm going to go, let's see, right outside here, still within the menu, and say .nav-item. So let's see, we're going to do the same thing with the translate 3D. We basically want it to be off the screen until we get the show. So let's say transform translate 3D. Now, we're not going up and down, we're going left and right. So we're dealing with the first parameter, and I'm going to say 600 pixels. Okay, so basically we're moving it off the screen to the right 600 pixels to start with. And we want to include our ease out. And then when the show class comes, we can actually just copy this. So when the show class comes, we want to slide in from right, like that. All right, so yeah, let's save that, and let's see what happens when we click. All right, now notice how it is sliding in from the right, but it's not right. The whole entire thing is coming in. So what we're actually going to do here is create a delay. Okay, so for each item when it slides in, we're going to create a delay. So we're actually going to use a Sass for loop here. So I'm going to go down to the bottom, and let's just put a comment in here, and we'll say delay each nav item slide by 0.1 seconds. So we want to do a for loop, so at for, and we basically want to just create, like if you do a for loop in JavaScript, you'll use like X or Y or X or I or something like that as an iterator. So I'm going to just use $X, and we're going to say from 1 through 4, because we have 4 links, okay, or 4 items. So it's like in JavaScript doing for and then saying like let I, or in this case let x equals 0, and then saying as long as I is less than 4, and then I plus plus. It's kind of like doing that in JavaScript or any language really, any for loop. So for each one, we want to take the nav item, so nav-item, and we want to take the nth child, so :nth child. Remember, we can select each one, oops, not nth, so nth child, And in here, like if we look at the links, the first one would be this one, second, third, fourth, but we want to loop through and we want a variable in here. Now I can't just put money sign X. That'll give us an error. We have to actually wrap this in a number sign and then curly braces. It's kind of like a template literal in Java in ES6. So if we do that, for each one, for each nth child, basically for each link here, we want to set a transition delay. So we'll say transition dash delay, and we want to set the delay to whatever the variable is. So X, which is going to start at 1, go through 4, and then we want to multiply it by 0.1 seconds. Okay, we don't want them all to be delayed by 0.1 seconds because they'll still all come in at the same time. We want like 1 times this, 2 times this, 3 times this, so that each one comes in separately. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's save this and then let's try it out. And there we go. So they kind of just fly in. Awesome. All right, so next thing I want to do is style the links because right now they're way too small. We need, a little bit of spacing. I also want them to be all capitalized or uppercase. So let's style those. So I'm going to go right here. Actually, let's see. Where do I want to go? Let's go right here. So we're still within the menu, and we're going to do our nav links. So dot nav dash link. And let's see how do we want to style these. Let's display them as inline blocks. Oops, inline block, and position them relative. And let's increase the font size. So we'll say font size, and I'm just going to use 30 pixels. And then let's do a text transform to make them all uppercase. And let's set some padding on the top and bottom. So 15 top and bottom. And actually we'll just do 1 rem. We'll use rem units. And then 0 on the left and right. Font weight. Font weight, I'm going to do 300. Color, we're going to, for now, just set it to white. And then let's also make sure that there's no, I know there's no underline, but just let's make sure. So text decoration, we want that set to none. And then let's add the transition as well. So we want to include ease in out or ease out. So let's save that. There we go. So if we click, come in from the side, good. So on hover, I want them to be the secondary color. Also, the current page that we're on should be the secondary color. So the current page is going to be attached to the nav item. If we look at the index HTML, you'll see we add current. Did I even do it? No, I didn't. So this first nav item, since this is the index HTML page, I'm going to add the class of current and save. And now we'll go back here, and for nav item, let's go down and say ampersand dot current, and we want the link. So we're going to say inside that the link is what we want to actually color. So let's see, we want to say color, which will be secondary color. Oops. All right, so let's save that and check it out. Okay, so now the home is yellow. And again, we also want hover, which is going to go on nav link. So I can actually just, we'll just put it in here. So within nav link, we're going to say ampersand colon hover. And we want the color to be the secondary color. So now when I hover, we get that yellow. All right, guys, so I think that's it for the overlay as far as this. Now, we do have the responsive version to do, because if we look at the responsiveness, you can see this looks like crap, and then the overlay really looks like crap. So we want to change this up. So we're going to do a couple things, but before we do that, let's just make a quick commit because we did do the overlay for basically for desktops. So I'm going to go to my other terminal here, and let's just say git add all, and let's do git commit m, and whoops, let's say we'll just do menu overlay. All right, so we'll go back to our other terminal here. And now let's create some mixins for our media queries. I like to put them inside of mixins when I use Sass. So in our config file, let's go down to the very bottom and we'll say media query mixins. So to do that, we'll say add mixin, and we're going to have small, medium, large, and extra large. So let's do mobile, not mobile, we'll say media SM. That'll be the name of our mixin. And here we want to put the actual media query. So at media, and we're going to do screen and then the size. So we're going to say max width of 500 pixels. Okay, so this is how you create a media query, and what this means is that any CSS we put inside of here will only apply if the screen is 500 pixels or less. Okay, so 500 pixels is, I don't know, it's like around here or something. So anything we put in here would be in for that size. Now, since this is a mixin, we're not going to actually put our CSS in here. I want to be able to use this mixin elsewhere. So all we have to do is in here is put content. So anything we put inside this mixin in another file, we can just add this mixin and it'll get automatically put inside here where we put content. So we're going to just grab this, and we need 3 more. So this one here is going to be, let's say, medium. Actually, we don't need comments. It's obvious. So media MD. And this is going to be for screens that are 768 and under. Okay, so 768 and under. And then for large, so we'll do LG. For large, we want to do a range. So I'm going to add, let's add right here a set of parentheses, and we'll say min width. So for screens that have a min width of 769 pixels, and I use 69 because it's 1 pixel after this. So if it's 769, if it's between that and a max width of, let's say, 1170. Okay, so if it's between that, whoops, I should have an and here as well. Let me just close this up. So if it's between this and this, then these styles will apply. Okay, so basically if it's between like 768, which I'd estimate like right here, and then 1170, which would probably be like, I don't know, right here or something like that, that would be the media large. Now media extra large, we want to do another range. So let's say min, actually no, we don't want to do a range here. We're just going to say min width. We want to say min width of 1 pixel above this, which is 1171. Okay, so anything above that is going to be this media query. So if you want something to only display or whatever, if you want some CSS in only huge screens like this, then you would use this media query. All right, so those are the media queries. Now we need a place to actually put our responsive CSS. So I'm going to create a new file inside SCSS called mobile.scss. I'm sorry, underscore mobile. It's a partial. And before I forget, let's just go to main SCSS and import mobile. Like that. All right, and I'm also going to just restart down here. I'm going to Control C and then npm run Sass again, just in case. Anytime I create a new file, I reset that. So in our mobile.scss, we want to use the mixins we just created. So this one, let's do extra large first. We'll go kind of top to bottom. So this will be for wide screens. So to use the mixin, we use include, and we want media XL. Okay, so that will be for wide screens. And let's just grab this, and we want 3 more. So the second one here is going to be for, let's say, desktops and laptops, and this is going to be our large. And then this one here is going to be for tablets. We'll say tablets and maybe some small laptops. So this will be medium, MD. And then this one here is for, let's say, smartphones. So media SM. Okay, so now anytime you want CSS for a specific screen size, you just put it within one of these media queries. So I'm going to save this. And let's start with just before we do the overlay, let's get this figured out. So I want this to be displayed. I want everything like in the middle and in the main area here on medium screens and smaller. So let's go into the MD and let's add main, and let's say align dash items. We want to align these center. I also want to text align. Why do I keep doing that? 0 text align center, and save. And let's see, I'm getting an error down here. No mixin named media XL. Wait a minute. Let's go into our config. Oh, it has a capital L. We only want this to be capital. All right, let's save that, and there we go. So now everything's in the middle. Good. Let's see. So I also want the heading. We're going to change the line height because see how much space is in between here. So inside the main tag right here, let's do a .lg dash heading because that's inside the main tag, and we're going to set the line height to 1, and let's set margin dash bottom to 1 rem, and save. And there we go. So that looks good. Let's see, let's make it really small. So like right here, this is where it changes to MD. So MD large. MD large. I also want, let's see, let's actually move this down a bit. So for the small, inside the small, I'm going to say main, let's just do main ID home H1. And I'm going to say from the margin top, I want it to be 10 viewport heights. Okay. And save. So just so if this is shorter, I always want it to be 10 viewport heights. And I think that's all I need to do for the homepage responsiveness. Now we want to deal with the overlay because I mean that actually looks okay, but once it gets really small, it doesn't. So we want to fix that. So all the stuff that we're going to do is going to be within the tablets and small laptops because this affects not only the tablet size but anything below that as well. So first thing we'll do is add. Let's go below the main. Make sure you're not within the main. And let's say ul.menu-nav as well as the div.menu-branding. So this will be for both. And right now they're floated to the left, so they're side by side. We don't want that, so we're going to say float none. We also don't want a width of 50% for each. We want 100% because we want, if we look at the final project here and we go to medium, you'll see that now they're 100% each because they're not floated. So let's say width 100%. let's see, we're also going to set a min height of 0. And then we want to do for the show, okay, so when the show, like when the overlay comes in, we don't want them to come in from the top and bottom. We want them to come in from the left and right. So we need to change the transform and translate ID properties. So let's go still within here. We're going to say ampersand.show and then say transform translate 3D, and we're going to say 0, 0, 0. So that's when it shows. Now, when it doesn't show, we need to change those values as well. So let's start with the nav, the menu nav. So I'm going to go below. Let's see. We want to go right here. Just make sure you're still within the media query. So still within media MD. And let's do dot menu dash nav. And we're going to set the height of the menu nav to 75 viewport heights. Now, if we look at the final project, you can see this is the menu nav. It's 75 viewport heights. So remember, 100 slices, it takes up 75. This will take up 25. So let's do height 75. Let's do our transform translate 3D. Now, instead of coming in from the top and bottom where we would use the middle parameter, now we're coming in from the left and right, so we want to use the first parameter. So this is going to be negative 100% and then 0, 0. Okay, that's its resting place. And then on the show, it'll come into view, but it'll come in from the side. And then finally, I just want to change the font size. Let's say font size to 24 pixels. All right, so if we look at it now, it's messed up, right? Because we need to finish. But for now, that's what it looks like. For the branding, for the menu branding, let's go right below the menu nav, and let's do that. So menu branding, and we want to set that height to 25 viewport heights. Okay, so the nav is 75, the branding is 25, and then we need our transform translate 3D, and this is going to come in from the other side, so 100%. The other one was negative 100 because we want that to come in from the left. This one's coming in from the right, so we want 100%. Okay, so if we go ahead and check this out, it looks like that, which is, we're almost there, but the image is too big. So in your images file, you'll notice a portrait.jpg and a portrait small.jpg. So we need to change the portrait to that smaller image. So within menu branding, let's add the portrait class. So let's say portrait and set the background to URL. And we want to set that to /img/ portrait _ small.jpg, and then just set the width to 150 pixels instead of 250, and then also the height, set that to 150 pixels and save, and there we go. All right, so now if we make this really small, it still looks good. Everything still looks good. Awesome. So we now have the menus done, the overlay, the home page, and the responsiveness. In our config file, we can change colors. We can change if we want the image shown, stuff like that, the opacity. Just to test the colors, let's say, I don't know, let's choose like a dark green, and then for the secondary, we'll choose a blue. This is going to be really ugly, but let's save, and there we go. Okay. Now we're going to create a mix-in. We'll do this in the next video. We're going to create a mix-in that will make it so that when it's on a light background, for instance, if I make the primary color white, and save, you'll see it doesn't look good because the text is white, so we can't read it. So we want a mixin that will determine what the color should be of the font based on the background color. So we will do that. We'll also start on the other pages. So let's just put this back to dark gray and yellow. And then let's just make our commit real quick. Again, you guys don't have to do this, but I'm going to say git add all and git commit. Actually, we just need M. So git commit, and what do? We basically made our site responsive. So let's just say added media queries and made menu overlay responsive. Whatever, it doesn't really matter. All right, so in the next video, like I said, we'll get to the text, changing the text, and then we'll start to create our other pages as well.